Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Mizuki Arts. Today we're doing another paint with me kind of compilation video. I have 3 cozy autumn fairies here that I'm going to paint, and I'm very excited about it. This was a series that I worked on in late September. I'm sure you can hear it in my voice. I'm sick. I've been sick for a little over a week now, and yeah, I'm struggling. But I'm okay now. I'm getting on antibiotics and everything because I got a little sinus infection. But yeah, I'm gonna be all good. But that's why last week there was no video, and prior to that I was just busy and couldn't edit. So I apologize for being absent for a couple weeks, and I also apologize for my voice, which sounds a little bit disgusting right now. But anyways, this is my Cozy Autumn series, which was meant to be like iconic fall smells or flavors combined with like cozy hobbies. And this first fairy is a pumpkin spice fairy. Because pumpkin spice reminds me of both pumpkins and also like cinnamon and things like that, I chose orange as like the main color of her design. So I decided to give her like this very bright orange, like royal looking ball gown for like her design. I wanted it to be like this bright, almost neon looking orange. It's more autumny like on camera and also in the early stages, but I did brighten it up quite a bit because I added in lots of like golden yellows and stuff, especially to the skirt. And the reason I chose like a royal ball gown is because pumpkin spice is like a pretty old recipe. I have to look at like when it was invented, but it's been around like a long while. And I put cinnamon sticks and star anise, I'm not sure how to say it, in her hair. Not every pumpkin spice recipe contains star anise, but some do, and I think, you know, the more the merrier when it comes to spices in a pumpkin pie. So I thought, in addition to being a nice star shape for a hair accessory, I would add it onto my pumpkin spice fairy. I ended up keeping her makeup pretty simple. I didn't want to go too crazy with it, and I gave her kind of like a royal updo too, and like long dirty blonde hair. And I gave her embroidery as her cozy hobby of choice, just because I thought it was fitting for a fairy that has like a more royal or like medieval kind of look to her. She's definitely not traditionally medieval, she's definitely like fantasy, but you know, like a more medieval inspired look, we should say. I added lots of embroidered and stitched details to her dress, as well as like lace and ruffles, things like that, just because I figured a fairy that does needlework should have like a pretty intricate dress. Plus I just like designing dresses that are kind of like that. This whole series, you'll notice, has a theme of me drawing whatever the heck I want, kind of, you know, just plastered all over it. So it's fluffy dresses and cutesy cottagecore things and just pretty characters all around, which is always what I paint on this channel. But you know, you'll see I pretty much do whatever I want with these designs. I keep them as simple or as complicated as I want, and some of my decisions don't always make a lot of sense or have a lot of motivation behind them, other than that's what I felt like doing. Like I mentioned earlier, I added lots of golden hues to her dress, and that was partially because I wanted her dress to be bright and like silky and just beautiful. But the other thing was, I really did not want to mix like a whole bunch of this base color of orange, because I knew once I was done doing fall art, like I would not use any leftover oranges on my palette. I would just clean it off. So I just mixed up a little bit of orange on my palette, and then also just added in a whole bunch of like yellow when I was painting her dress, and was just running out of the orange that I mixed, if that makes sense. So you know, her dress has this like ombre kind of effect to it, and that's half because I was lazy and didn't feel like mixing up more paint only to potentially waste it later on. Ironically, I think it looks better than if I had made the base color solid. It has made me rethink how I paint dresses, and then how I paint like color shifts and things like that, because I feel like it gave the dress like a more like finished professional kind of look to it. Like it made it look less, I don't know, like solid, if that makes sense, like plain. Like most of her dress doesn't have like a pattern on it. Like there's embroidered details on the edge, and then there's like a layer underneath and everything with ruffles, but the basic skirt is just like a block of fabric. So adding this like ombre effect is actually like very, very effective, I think. Because I felt like the orange in her design was getting like super overwhelming at points, like too pumpkin-y and not pumpkin spice enough, if that makes sense, because pumpkin spice doesn't actually contain pumpkin. Anyway, I added some like cinnamon brown kind of colored thread details, and then that color I also used in her hair accessories and everything. I just thought adding that to the details a little bit would pull back on some of the orange like in her design, because it was getting like a little bit overpowering, and it pretty much stays overpowering. Like I did want a lot of orange, but I just wanted to make it clear that this was a pumpkin spice fairy and not a pumpkin fairy, if that makes sense. This is so completely random, but every year on Thanksgiving, my mom makes a pumpkin cheesecake, and it's only October 2nd, and I'm already like, I've been looking forward to the cheesecake for weeks. Like, it's not, Thanksgiving is like 2 months from now, like literally end of November, but I cannot wait for this pumpkin cheesecake. I love it. It's my favorite kind of cheesecake, and I am a cheesecake girl, like 100%. I love cheesecake. So, you know, I'm looking forward to it very much. And I think anyone out there that hasn't been blessed by a pumpkin cheesecake should probably try it this year, because, you know, it's a beautiful blessing of a dessert, and it's so good. Please try it. Please, if you like cheesecake, you will like the pumpkin cheesecake. It is so yummy. Oh my goodness. I also think part of why I've been looking forward to this pumpkin cheesecake for months and months is not only because it's the best kind of cheesecake, but also because I haven't had cheesecake since like fall of last year. Because I'm gluten-free right now, like I have a gluten-free diet. And gluten-free cheesecake is kind of hard to come by. Like you can make it, but I think I've mentioned this before, I really don't bake. Like I can make a box mix brownie. You know, I can participate in baking if it's happening, but gluten-free baking is a little tricky, and I am also just lazy. I'm 100% like too like lazy. So, you know, it's not that I couldn't make a gluten-free cheesecake, but it hasn't happened yet. And 9 out of 10 times I will choose the lazy gluten-free dessert, which is usually like gluten-free ice cream. So I'm very much looking forward to this cheesecake. Yeah. Another personal favorite of mine when it comes to like desserts with pumpkin spice is pumpkin whoopie pies. They're like a cookie sandwich or like a cake sandwich type dessert. And they're like pumpkin spice flavored, and you know, again, I don't really bake, but some people in my family bake, and they're very, very good. I look forward to them every fall. They're so yummy. Oh my gosh. And usually they're made with like a cream cheese frosting filling, and they're so good, and I'm just looking forward to them again. Like honestly, like every fall I get into such a good mood about it being fall and like anticipating like all the holidays and stuff, and then I get sick, And so I end up in like a foul mood over it. Like I'm like, oh, this happens every fall, boohoo, boohoo, whatever. But then the second I start to get a glimpse of feeling better, like that love of fall comes back. Like I'm so excited. Like I can't wait to have fall food. Like I'm so pumped. Oh my gosh. The other thing I tried to do this year, like to look forward to fall and enjoy fall and all that, was I bought a pumpkin pie scented lotion. But I bought it online, so I didn't smell it before I bought it. And to me, it just smells like vanilla. Like, it's not pumpkin spice scented, so it shouldn't smell like just cinnamon, but it smells like vanilla and cinnamon. Like, that's kind of it. I don't know. To me, it doesn't smell quite like pumpkin pie. And I remember I let one of my friends like try it out, and she was like, it smells like coconut. Like, it doesn't smell like cinnamon and vanilla. But then like I asked another person, and like that person thought it smelled like pumpkin pie. Like they nailed it. So I was just like, I don't know. I have regrets, and I feel like I wasted $6 on this lotion. Like, it was cheap. It was a tiny bottle. Like, I'm not super into like scented stuff, like perfumes and stuff. Like, I don't really use perfume because I'm very sensitive to smell. But you know, I took this risk on the lotion because I wanted to try out like a pumpkin pie scented lotion. I thought that sounded so cute for the fall, and yeah, it just didn't really meet my expectations. But yeah, this pumpkin spice girly though, she's coming together really well. I cut her out. I put her on a green background with like a pumpkin patch and added some leaves, and then I painted on some more, obviously, as you see on screen. And she's really looking like pumpkin spice to me. Even if my lotion disappointed me, I feel like this girly did not. I feel like she looks very pumpkin-y. She definitely looks like she smells like pumpkin spice, like cinnamon and nutmeg and star anise or nice. I don't know how to say it. I'm so sorry. I feel like last year I didn't know how to say it either when I made my fall dessert fairies video. Like, I didn't know how to say it then either for my vanilla chai character. But anyways, I think she turned out so cute, and definitely looks like a nostalgic pumpkin spice kind of girly. Let me know what you think of her. And our next character is going to be Maple, like maple syrup, maple leaves, like that kind of vibe, maybe both. I think my like official prompt for this was maple and sugar, but I definitely leaned more in the direction of like the scent of like maple trees and like fall leaves and stuff like that. So she's a little bit inspired by both. I ended up giving her more of a like cottage core kind of vibe. Like I gave her like this off the shoulder dress that has like a leaf shaped hem. You'll see what I mean in a second. It's like the ends of it like are making the formation of like an outline of a maple leaf. And then I gave her lots of rings, including a maple leaf shaped one, and I gave her like a big long skirt, and I gave her reading as her cozy hobby, just because I don't know about you guys, but reading was one of my favorite pastimes. I was homeschooled for a little while when I was younger, like through middle school, and that was when I like got really super into reading. Like I was reading like, you know, Of Mice and Men, and like some like the Bronte sisters work. Like I read Jane Eyre, and I read like Gone with the Wind and all that. Like it was all good stuff. So I associate like reading with like a nostalgia for the fall, and I also associate it with summertime too, because I used to like sit outside like in a lawn chair and read over the summers and stuff. So I thought it was a very cute hobby for this girly, and I also didn't want the cozy hobbies that I included in this little mini series to only be like crafty hobbies, because you'll see my third fairy is going to have crochet as her cozy hobby, and I didn't want it to only be like oh, you know, crafty creative hobbies instead of like true like cozy, like, I don't know, cozy, relaxing, and also like mentally stimulating hobbies, like generally speaking, you know. But reading definitely like broadens the scope, I think, of the hobbies that I've included, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know how to explain what I mean, but I think you hopefully get it. Like, I didn't want to only include like I didn't want to only include like textile hobbies because my other option to include was like knitting or like a non-textile creative hobby like scrapbooking. I guess I could have like made a fairy that was doing like a puzzle, but I didn't really want to like make a fairy that had like too much of a setting, and I wasn't sure how to show like a fairy putting together a puzzle that wasn't like she needed like floor space or like a table or something in the painting. So in the end, reading won out. For the other two fairies in this video, I gave them like hair pieces, but for this character, I actually ended up giving her like a more intricate hairstyle. I gave her like these braids that are like tight to the scalp. I forget exactly what they're called. It might be cornrows, but I'm probably wrong. I don't know. And then it ends in like this loose kind of ponytail. And then she also has like edges laid, like she has curls like combed and gelled down at the like hairline. I thought that was a fun thing to add. I love adding like edges to my characters, if that makes sense. I love like face framing, like a face framing bang, anything like that is a lot of fun for me to add. I actually ended up struggling with her color palette a lot because I wanted her to look like recognizably maple without only being reminiscent of like the maple tree. Like I mentioned earlier, I was kind of pulling inspiration from both. So I wanted her to have lots of maple tree motifs, but then also be reminiscent of like maple syrup and like maple tree farms, like where you'd have syrup and things like that. So you'll see I work lots of like creams and tans and like warm browns in, but then her skirt is like fully like, it looks like a maple leaf, like in texture and color palette. Like it's red and gold, like it looks like a maple leaf during the fall. I also tried to add a lot of like stitched details and things like that onto her dress, embroidery patterns, things like that, just because I think that's like a staple in this series, like everything being like cozy and very nostalgic looking, very charming, like I don't know how else to describe it, like homemade looking, like everything in the series, even like the royalness of like the pumpkin spice character, her dress still has like kind of sloppy stitches on it, even though she is like someone who engages in embroidery. Like I still wanted it to look like very rough and homemade, very cozy, very crafty, and I tried to keep up that same theme with this character. And I did struggle with her color palette, like I mentioned earlier. Like I was afraid doing like this bright orange, and I was terrified that she was going to be too orange when she was up next to pumpkin spice. Like I didn't necessarily need them to have their own distinct color palettes, like entirely separate from each other, but I just didn't want these two to look so overwhelmingly orange and then have my third character like not have like a ton of orange in her. So that's why I leaned into the red and the maple leaf kind of look later on, you'll see, just because as I was laying down this orange, I kind of realized what was going on. But you'll see when it comes to the embroidery and stitches that I add to this character, even though I keep her top like a light cream kind of color to be reminiscent of like a maple candy, like a candy made out of a maple syrup, I add those stitches to look like the veins of a leaf. The reason I bring up a maple candy specifically in relation to her shirt color is because I know someone who owns a farm and they have maple trees and they get syrup and everything, and they have a recipe for maple candy, which is really, really good. I've had some before. It's delicious. It's just this beautiful, like, frosty white color, but then it's got like tan, like throughout, like a tan color, and that's the maple syrup, of course. And I think some of that inspiration might have accidentally leaked into this character, which is why I was thinking tan specifically for top. Um, so yeah, she's got the maple candy top with the vein details embroidered on and everything. I'm sorry if I'm bouncing around a little bit during this voiceover. I'm all over the place, and this is the first time I've like sat down at my desk in like, you know, a solid week. Like, I've been sick. So yeah. I used a very similar dark brown color that I used for the stitching details in my pumpkin spice fairy, for the stitching details on her dress, just because I thought it kind of fit, especially since it's close to like a maple syrup color, if that makes sense. And I also made her wings sort of like a golden maple syrupy kind of color, and I tried to give them that clear kind of look that syrup would have, like in the bottle. It's actually such a fun effect to paint because you put down your base color and then you come in with this like more golden tone, and it looks so nice when you just layer that over the dried original color. It looks very like glassy, which is so cool. And then I went in with a darker brown and I layered over her hair to give it like a little bit more dimension, just because I felt like the braids were looking pretty flat and I didn't want that to be the case. The entire time I was painting this fairy, I went back and forth between thinking about like the smell of like leaves when you're raking, and like how many memories I have of like raking up leaves, or like a big gust of wind like knocking down a whole bunch of leaves at once off trees. And then I went back to like thinking about like warm desserts and like foods with maple syrup and stuff. Like I was like, a stack of waffles sure sounds good right now with a whole bunch of maple syrup. Like, I'm a foodie. If you can't tell, like I am food motivated. Like, and I'm also very nostalgia motivated, which basically fueled this entire mini series. Like, I was just thinking about food and also like things that I remember fondly. So, yeah. Very, very nostalgia and food motivated overall. I've made like entire series based around food. Like, I made a series with like 8 or 9 paintings in it that was like fruit themed, like a fruit fairy series. I uploaded all of that onto my YouTube shorts, and like my Instagram reels and everything. So if you scroll far back enough, you can see what I'm talking about. And then more recently, I did a breakfast series. It's called Breakfast with You. And the whole series was just like me painting fairies and like breakfast foods. Like, there's like an eggs and English muffins fairy. There's a couple different like variations on like pancakes. Like, I think there's like pancakes and berries, and then there's like blueberry pancakes or something. And then there's like a French toast fairy and a toast and jam fairy, and there's a chamomile tea fairy. Like, this whole series was just about food. And then I remember like when I first started like painting with like watercolors and gouache and all that, like I got super into painting like characters with like pastries and desserts and things like that. And then when I got into like kawaii fashion, like Lolita fashion and all that, a lot of my characters would be featuring like bonnets with like desserts on them. One of my prints in my shop is actually a raspberry jam themed painting. So it's like a girl with a bonnet, and then she has like jam and like I think pastries and strawberries on her hat. I'd have to look back at it to see, because I sure have painted a lot of dessert themed characters. But I love how this fairy turned out. I think she's super cute. Yet another like food themed fairy. I love her. She's so pretty. And for our third and final cozy autumn fairy, I decided to do cinnamon apples. Obviously cinnamon and apples are good in pie, but also I have like a childhood memory of my dad like just slicing up apples and then like pouring like cinnamon over them, and that was like one of my favorite childhood snacks. It's so simple, but it's very comforting to me now. And so for our cinnamon apple girly, I pulled naturally from like nostalgic cottagecore themes, and then I also pulled inspiration from like, I don't know how else to describe this, but like elementary school like classroom displays. Like when teachers decorate their classrooms, there's like, you know, simple graphics and lots of colors, like usually apples too. Honestly, like they lean into the whole like giving your teacher an apple thing, I think, in elementary schools. So yeah, the second I decided to make an apple themed girly, that was what I was reminded of. Her color palette was weirdly challenging in its own way, for me, because I wanted her to look colorful like sliced apples, but also still fall like. And I also wanted her to have like an unnatural hair color, if that makes sense. Like I wanted her to like have bright green hair, whereas, you know, the other two I gave her them like natural colors, and then made primarily their clothes and wings really shine as far as the theme went. But for her, I wanted her to have like a bright green hair color, and then like lots of more muted tones in her dress design too, although her dress still is very bright as well. But the main challenge in the color palette was making it so that I didn't have like green on green or red on red, anything like that. Like I didn't want things to get muddied or blurred together by having like the same color on top of the same color. Obviously you can differentiate with values when you do that, which is why I have characters that are like orange on orange, especially at this time of year. But I didn't want that for our apple girly. And the other challenge was, of course, in keeping her like reminiscent of fall, like keeping that cozy, more muted look to her while also making her look bright. You'll see later on, I actually ended up moving colors around quite a lot and repainting over some things, particularly her yarn and her shawl, just because I wanted her to like, you know, still pop, and I was struggling with that balance between like nostalgic fall with muted colors and things popping. I don't know if that makes sense, but that was what was going on here. So if you see me going back over things, that's what's happening. I don't know that I went over things quite as much as I felt like I was, like repainting things, but I definitely felt like I was like struggling, and I don't know how much of that was just in my head or not, but you know. I ended up putting a half of an apple in her hair as her main hairpiece, and then I added some smaller ones around it as like extra little barrettes. I gave her a layer on her dress that was meant to look like peeled apple, like an apple skin, if that makes sense. Because obviously when you're making like an apple pie, you would use like apples that are peeled and probably boiled, and then like cinnamon too, like, so it matched our theme, and I felt like it was a nice way to add in some more detail and layers to her design. And I did something similar with her wings, except I gave them that clear kind of look to them, as well. She sort of reminds me of like the illustrations in like an elementary school workbook, and I know I'm bringing back up like the like school themes, but you know, that's what it reminds me of. And it also reminds me of my workbooks from when I was homeschooled. I ended up giving her crochet as her cozy hobby, because I just cannot deny the association that I have with like textile crafts and winter time. Like I feel like that's the perfect time to like pull out like your knitting needles or your crochet needles or like your needlework, whatnot, and just sit like by a fireplace or like a space heater, whatever you have, and just work away at it. I know you can do that stuff like year round, but winter and fall are such like slow times of year that it kind of feels more natural to work on that kind of thing during that time, especially crochet, because if you're working on any project that's not like a little tiny like stuffed toy, like if you're working on like a blanket or a sweater or whatever, you're inevitably going to be covered in your project, sort of like a blanket. Like you'll be under the blanket that you're crocheting on long before it's finished, just because your project grows as you work on it, of course. Quite a few people in my family can crochet and do needlework and things like that. I can do a little bit of sewing, but I'm not like inclined when it comes to textiles. Like I'm just not talented at that particular kind of thing. And obviously you have to learn it, but I do think there is some amount of talent involved in artwork and crafts and things like that. Like obviously you can learn it if you put enough time into it, but I honestly think the willingness to put in the time is the talent. So uh I have so much admiration for people that can do that stuff. I've given it a go several times, but I've never given it enough time or effort to actually like learn it, like actually to figure it out. And I just have a lot of admiration that for people that do, and that also goes for people that like read a lot as well, because I used to read a lot and I don't do it as much as I maybe should anymore. I want to get into like audiobooks and things like that. But I don't know, I don't have an attention span anymore. But anyways, I put together this girl and I feel like the composition doesn't work as well as the other two, but I do love how she turned out, and I love how the whole series turned out. Really, they're all so nostalgic and beautiful to me. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me paint these girlies. Definitely know what you think of this mini series, and let me know what are some ways that you're enjoying fall this year. What are your favorite fall pastimes? And let me know, because I feel like I have mixed feelings about it too. Do you guys enjoy watching the weather cool down, or do you miss summer at this time? Real quick before I end the video, I want to give a shout out to my Ko-fi supporters. So thank you so much to Ashley, Savvy, Tiffany, and Lilycorn. Your guys' support means the world to me, and it allows me to keep making videos just like this one. If you would like to join my Ko-fi page, there will be a link in the description box down below where you can get all these benefits and so much more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.